We are incredibly lucky to be joined by Jazmin Zinnerman from Hilarity for Charity. Jazmin is the Senior Manager of Programs for Hilarity for Charity. And Jazmin has been devoted to the human services profession for over 15 years now, with experience in various sectors, including developmental and intellectual disabilities, foster care, domestic violence, and individual and family services. She has a master's degree in psychology and serves as adjunct faculty for undergraduate psychology at Purdue Global University. Jazmin is originally from Indianapolis, Indiana, and relocated to Southern California in 2015 and has spent the last several years working as a provider and with a regional center to advocate for people living with developmental disabilities. She has several years of experience leading teams across various departments and has passion in contributing to agency goals through the implementation of systems and a collaborative team approach. And let me tell you, from the work that the DEAR program has gotten to do with Hilarity for Charity, I can tell you that Jazmin lives those values of collaborative approach. It has been delightful to develop a professional relationship with Jazmin over the last year or so. And I'm so excited for Jazmin to share all of the impact that Hilarity for Charity is making around education and support in the brain health and dementia space. So, Jazmin, I will go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Casey, and for that warm welcome. I appreciate your kind words, and it's mutual working with the video program and you all. It's been so rewarding and fulfilling on our end. So thank you so much. Again, very happy to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share screen. That's okay. And then kind of jump in. If you have questions, um, please feel free. I will try to answer them as we go. There will be plenty of time after to ask questions. Also, as soon as I'm done with the slide presentation, I will put in the chat, I will put the website for caregivers directly that will take you to our site and give you all of the options that I'm going to talk about and discuss. And then I'll also put our care at inbox, email inbox, and it's an inbox that I monitor directly. So if you email or if you have questions that you think of outside of here, or you're just not comfortable necessarily asking in front of everyone, you can feel free to reach out and reach us there. So I'm going to jump in. I'm our Senior Manager of Programs, as Casey mentioned, or HFC, also Hilarity for Charity, and we really focus on bringing light to Alzheimer's. So, what's our mission? Our mission is to care for families impacted by Alzheimer's disease, activate the next generation of Alzheimer's advocates, and be a leader in brain health research and education. So, in our efforts to do that, this is some feedback from an HFC community member. It's a direct quote. I want to reiterate how the correspondence in this direct chat, along with your public-facing content over the years, has truly been one of the most amazing, important pieces of my puzzle. Through it, I am inspired, educated, and finding community. This, to me, is quite sacred, and I want to scream your praise from the mountaintops. So this is just an example of some feedback from one person in the community. And it just shows our impact on a very human level, right? And so here's our impact a little bit in numbers. 28 million has been raised to support family caregivers, brain health education, and prevention research. 530,000 hours of in-home care relief have been awarded through our Caregiver Respite Grant Program. And like I said, I will put that link in the chat and you will have the link to the Caregiver Respite Program. And there's a frequently asked questions and all kinds of information there as well. And then 2 million people have been reached on average through our program grants, our events, and our social media each year. So, how do we care for caregivers? Well, not our main focus, but one of the most significant ways in which we care for caregivers is by providing those respite care grants, right? And so that's in home. And in a little bit, I'll talk about our new services and what we've added because we've expanded to not only in-home respite services, but also adult day and other emergency grants. But For our impact here in caring for caregivers, 30,000 respite hours per year. We have 45 ongoing support groups, including a Spanish speaking group, a bilingual group, a BIPOC bereavement group. We have our chosen family group that's inclusive of LGBTQIA+. We also have recently added an only child group, and that was based off feedback from our community and the need for that because they have unique challenges. And we have a men's support group, understanding that that group also has a, unique set of challenges and experiences, and we found those to be very successful. And we are continuing to add groups just as we go and as we see a need and as people reach out. We have interacted with 263 professional caregivers with our continuing education courses. We recently began continuing education courses at our big event called CareCon that we do annually. We will be doing it again in February, of 2026. So stay tuned. In 2024, 382 families were served and supported, and 421 support group participants. I just mentioned our new caregiver programs a short time ago, and those have taken off and are continuing to grow, right? So 42 adult day grant. Again, that's separate from our in-home. It's the same program, but instead of someone having to come in-home, we give grants for folks to be able to go out in adult day health and socialize and enjoy. And so that was 7,680 hours of care. 30 families and folks participated in the one-on-one care navigation. And what that is that was a one-on-one assessment for various local resources and just identifying any other needs for referrals or resources, and then a thorough assessment from a licensed social worker was sent and reviewed with the family. And then again, specific local resources identified based on the assessment and those needs. And then we had 41 folks for one-on-one financial coaching. Financial wellness is a newer program that we started really focusing on, just recognizing the challenges that folks experience, especially when being a family caregiver or unpaid caregiver and trying to navigate different finances throughout. I saw a couple of chats, so is it okay if I let me? Oh, Casey, you're navigating. Sorry, thank you. Who do we give grants to? Good question. Grants go to folks who are family caregivers. So folks who are taking care of someone who is living with Alzheimer's or dementia. And though we want and ask that people show, the financial need, our application process is not rigorous and you needing to provide documentation or financial information. You don't have to do that. We've also narrowed it down where people don't have to give as much of a narrative, and that's based on feedback. So there are a lot of rating questions in a couple areas of narrative feedback. And folks who are eligible are people in the United States and Canada. And then there's a couple other eligibility requirements, and I'm happy to review those once we get to the end. And you can also find all of that information will be on the site. And when you click on the respite care grants, it will tell you eligibility requirements for the grant and also answer a lot of other frequently asked questions. Community lounges is one area that's near and dear to my heart. It is an area, or let's say it's something I started at HFC. So when I started at HFC, coming off COVID, we had a different program, but I came in with fresh eyes and ears, read a lot of the feedback over the past few years that the community and things that they wanted to see. And in addition to support groups, people wanted a safe space to be celebrated, to have information, to do educational, well, experiential things. And so out of that came the creation of these community lounges. And so now, HFC, we've hosted over 30 community lounges year to date. reaching nearly 100 caregivers, a lot of repeat caregivers. I heard Casey mention that a lot of you, he recognizes people that are here again. Same with us, we get a lot of people that come back. And some of our community lounges, they vary. It's various topics, themes, and things. What I really try to do is not only make sure it's diversified, but then also make sure in the Zoom description and when we're promoting that there is enough information for folks to decide if they want to attend and if it will be beneficial or what they can get out of it if it's of interest. And here are just a few of some we've done, just so you have an idea. Terrifically Funny Tuesdays, that's an ongoing, and that is, we're partnered with Laughter on Call. And so that is a time for caregivers to come laugh, socialize, hopefully take a break and just celebrate themselves. We've talked about reluctant caregiving, which can be a sensitive topic, but also talked about giving people a safe space to have discussion and feel safe and open to, to say how they're really feeling and be able to discuss some of those challenges. So that was a really popular lounge. We had navigating the holidays. We have holidays throughout the year, of course, and just holidays can be challenging as is, but especially for a family caregiver or caregivers in these situations. Uh, and let me clarify too, we this year have put an emphasis on not only supporting family caregivers, but also professional caregivers, recognizing that they need support, they face difficulties and barriers too. So as I'm saying family caregiver, well, that's true. And for our grant program, that still remains true. We've expanded to community lounges for professional caregivers. And in addition, we've also expanded to, we have a support group specific for professional caregivers that began in early November. Um, so navigating the holidays, right? Understanding those challenges. We have a Calm Through Coloring. That was a monthly lounge throughout this year where people gathered to color. And it's just been scientifically proven what coloring helps do. That's why it's called Calm Through Coloring. Helps us release stress and helps provide a sense of calm. We had storytelling in 2025. I mentioned CareCon. It's our virtual event. We've done disaster preparedness. So that's just being able to be prepared and then very specific to Alzheimer's and dementia and different items or different things needed and things to have prepared in advance. We've done communication and Alzheimer's. You'll see over here on the other side, we have FTD and communication, very specific. And on that note, we also have an FTD support group. So music wellness workshops, we've done several of those for community lounges. We also offered earlier this year some one-on-one music wellness with a licensed music therapist, and it was very successful, and she was very flexible with whatever the family wanted. What did they want? For instance, someone had lots of CDs, but they wanted to make those playlists on Spotify and they wanted help being able to move those and help implement that with the person that they were caring for. And we were able to accommodate that. We had a men's roundtable discussion that was led by several men in the field that are, not only on social media, but we had a couple in our support groups, a couple that were on YouTube. So very, very good. Keeping each other company. That is our monthly grief group that came out of CareCon. We had an end of life panel and discussion on that, and some of the feedback was that it would be nice, while HFC does offer bereavement groups in addition to our support groups, the grief group is monthly and it's more drop in and it's not weekly, and there's less commitment in the formality. So that group came out of people's feedback from there. We talked about living with dementia and how we can incorporate music wellness. We did a time slips lounge. Time slips is very visually based, and not focused on recalling memory, just focused on present and the moment, what things make you feel, what you see, right? We have worked with OMA art kits. So OMA is Opening Minds Through Art. And what we did with them is we partnered with them to send in-home art kits to about 30 participants. And those kits, it is for the person living with dementia. And it has been really amazing to watch. So there were three guided sessions, three art kits, three separate art kits sent, and three guided sessions on Zoom where person living and then their caregiver got to be there, be on the session, and work together. Good feedback around that. I talked about our financial wellness. We also offered music wellness for people living with dementia. We offered a rest and recharge, which was a conversation, movement, live music, and meditation, and then navigating care as needs change. That also came out of feedback from the community and saying, hey, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. Can we get some help or some assistance on what people have done and different resources to help? So that's not an all-inclusive list, but these are several of the lounges and just goes to show, as you see the different topics and their different themes, and like I said, different experiences. Some are caregiver wellness, some are educational, and then other specific topics. We have our caregiver road trip. I will also make sure to link this so you can feel free to go check it out. We currently have 6 sections of HOC's caregiver road trip. And what it is it's an interactive uh, map. So it is to help you. If you see, and the reason we broke it up in sections is so people don't have to read it front to back, or so if there's certain topics or areas that you feel you don't need to look at, or certain areas where you're like, man, I could really use some info. I could really use some resources. Where do I start with this? That's what the road trip or the HFC caregiver road trip is. So as I mentioned, there's 6 sections and we have several upcoming sections. Those include clinical trial considerations, genetic testing, and then kind of to align with our only child support group, only child caregivers. We've had 23,000 visitors since we launched in 2024. And so healthcare industry average is 2.96K per year. So we beat that. So section one is kind of an intro when looking at the lay of the land, right? So trip planning. Section two is the time to pack. So in that section, we talk about must-haves for any care journey. Section three is checking your tires. And that section, we're talking about it, talking about the hard things and the things that maybe we haven't discussed, and then we're planning ahead. Section four is buckle up, and that is living with dementia. And then we have section five, which is cruise control for the soul, and that includes self-care. And of course, it's more than just bubble baths or relaxation, because we recognize that that doesn't help with burnout, and that's not everybody's idea of self-care. So various ideas and things on self-care and being able to pour into yourself and fill yourself up so you can continue to care for the person you're caring for. And then section six is a tender trek, and that section discusses palliative and hospice care. So after reviewing and going through the road trip, and like I said, what I just went over is just a summary. It's an interactive document, so I encourage you to take a look at it. 100% of respondents said that they would recommend the road trip to a friend after reviewing, and 86.7% said that the guide helped them think about and prepare for the future. And then here's another direct quote directly from someone who reviewed the road trip. It is incredibly difficult to distill so much of the information that is vital to caregivers, but this guide has succeeded in that admirably, presenting it in a manner that is easy to understand but relatable in tone and in a way that does not come across as condescending. I love it and have been sharing the link with the caregivers I work with. Okay. So hopefully people, when they look at the road trip, they're just like, ah, good, this is just something. And the thought process is behind us in development and creating is that it's something that people refer to over and over. Not just you go through it one time, but that you're looking and taking things from it. And then we're going to hopefully continue to add sections as we have scheduled upcoming sections and more to come. Right. So HFC Universe, what is that and what does it consist of? Well, HFC Universe is HFC's original evidence-based curricula. It includes the Youth Movement Against Alzheimer's, which is also known as WIMA, we refer to that. And it also includes our brain health leader training. What is that? Okay, we'll talk a little more about what HFCU is and why we like it, right? HFC Universe is dedicated to empowering both the young and the young at heart through innovative brain health education and dynamic dementia prevention initiatives. We aim to inspire and mobilize individuals of all ages to become advocates for brain health, leveraging the power of community, celebrity influence, and brain health leader training. Our mission is to create a uniquely engaging and relatable platform that drives awareness, fosters healthy brain habits, and champions a movement against Alzheimer's disease. And so, with HSC Universe, as a result of the Gates Ventures investment, HSC secured a 1.3 million in-kind donation from New Tradition Media, and we received that in the form of out-of-home advertising in New York City and LA. Right, so we were able to be in New York for a staff retreat during the right-hand side, as you can see Times Square, and see that not with all of these people, but we were able to see it and be there. And then to the left, you'll see the LA signs and the flight one was aligned with our national launch and the HFC signature event. So it ran for 4 weeks on April 22nd through May 19th. And then flight two targeted back to school time and World Alzheimer's Day, which was August 26th through 9/22. And that also ran for 4 weeks. What happened, right? So we got to put the word out there. We got promo for our original evidence-based curricular. We had 11,486 learners. That's an 825% increase since we relaunched in April of 2024. 66% have completed at least one course. There's a few courses I'm to talk about the 28 courses, including 101, 201, and 301 masterclass. Right? So 66% have completed at least one of those, and then 6,988 HFC's youth movement Instagram followers. And on that note, we exceeded our goals there, especially by the number of learners. The youth movement against Alzheimer's. It's often referred to, I keep saying the whole name so you know, but I will also refer to it as WIMA, and that's what we call it. And as of 2025, there are 84 chapters. And in 2023, we were at 24. And you'll see the jump. I don't have to go through it specifically, excuse me, but you'll see the chapters, locations, and students, and the number of students, and just the increases in those. We had a 176% increase in chapters, 57% increase in locations, and a 93% increase in students. What is our youth saying? Well, and what are they saying about the information that we're putting out about brain health and prevention? This is another direct quote. Hi, HFC. I truly love what you guys are doing towards teaching others about Alzheimer's prevention and the importance of brain health. I'm an incoming senior at my high school and recently attended a presentation of yours at a HOSA conference in Nashville. Your presentation has truly opened up my eyes to the importance of taking care of my body and brain now as a teenager. With my generation, I truly feel as though we have become addicted to being on our phones and scrolling, and I'm personally victim to that. After learning from your presentation, I've taken into account the importance of working towards improving my cognition through activities such as reading, playing instruments, physical activity, and etc. This summer and going into my senior year, I've made it my focus to truly improve my life and future by focusing on things that improve my health. I've always been interested in the medical field, but stuck on what specialty I love. From your mission and teachings, I think I'd love to get involved in neuroscience and teach others about the importance of taking care of our brains. And so, as you can see, Alzheimer's affects more than just Alzheimer's. That was a sign that one of um, the Lima chapters made, and just trying to fight the stigma, right? And so, we also, WIMA is not just young people who are caregivers. WIMA is inclusive of high school and college students who are interested in various aspects of brain health, whether it's neuroscience, whether it's gerontology, and other specifics for research in different areas. So it is diverse groups of people who are interested in various areas, but they are all tied to brain health and Alzheimer's and dementia. So our brain health leader training. We have a specific training and evaluative data from the first cohorts of brain health leaders trained by HFC indicate that across all five brain health pillars, student leaders reported practicing brain health habits 30 days after the HFC training, meaning that they were still practicing these habits past 30 days after they have completed the training. These stats indicate an above average impact on behavior change compared to other initiatives like smoking cessation programs. So the increase in use in certain brain health strategies, 34% for sleep, 32% for nutrition, 18% for cognitive fitness, 17% for emotional well-being, and 16% physical fitness. So across all HSC universe programs, like what are the statistic? What's the information? Well, 61% of folks said they would consider an early Alzheimer's screening. 91% are inspired to share what they've learned about Alzheimer's. 83% are motivated to take actions for better brain health, and 56% of people have changed their views on people living with Alzheimer's. So, how are we amplifying our reach? Well, we scaled our reach with the HOSA partnership. And we had a global PSA competition that promoted brain health. And of course, because it was for WIMA, it was focused on youth. We had 6,180 competitors across 47 states, throughout 875 cities and communities. And there were 322 competitors at HOSA's International Leadership Conference in Houston. And to date, this was the fifth largest competitive event at HOSA's ILC in history, which is very exciting. And HOSA students gave feedback. We always like to hear feedback, and they said they wanted more celebrity coursework. So we've taken that into consideration and we've noted that. Pick up the chat. Did they have a health diagnosis? That's a good question. I don't have the details to that. I don't know that we asked that. So that's a great question. This is just based on, and it's not that it's all, obviously it's people of various ages, but it's based on the people who completed the coursework and then the feedback survey. So Taking Care is a film, and we did a screening, and there have been several other screenings, but it's a documentary, and a very intimate documentary, as the 38-minute documentary follows the journey of acclaimed filmmakers Seth Rogen and Lauren Miller Rogen as they navigate the complexities and heartbreak of Lauren's mother's advancing Alzheimer's disease. And so this is very much part of, and obviously not all of Lauren's mother. Her name is Adele, Lauren's mother's story, and kind of what inspired HFC and how we came about. Taking Care is available on Amazon, on Apple TV Plus, Google Play and YouTube, and Fuse TV Plus. And our Taking Care Impact campaign. Right? So we were initially scheduled to screen Taking Care early this year, and then LA was significantly impacted by the fires, and so we moved it back into later this year. But our Taking Care Impact campaign, total audience reach is 75,000, and we have 782 screenings in the pipeline. We have 488 completed screenings already. And it was an official selection in the Indie Shorts International Film Festival and an official selection of the DOCLA for 2024. Okay. So I know I went through a lot of information, and before or as questions come up, I want to put a couple of links in the chat. So I'm going to first put the caregiver directly link. So that caregiver link will take you to programs. You can look at the caregiver respite, you can look at support groups and anything else, and then upcoming, like I said, upcoming events at that link. Also going to put the email address. It's care@wearehfc.org. I'm including it right now. I monitor that email inbox directly. So if you reach out or have any questions, it will be me to review and respond to that. And then, are there any questions I can answer that folks didn't ask while while I was going through the slides and presenting the information?
Jasmine, I'll start off. First of all, thank you so much for that overview
Yeah.
of all that HFC is doing. It is a tremendous landscape of services and supports that you are offering. I find I love the tagline, bringing light. It's something that, caught me right away when I first
Yeah.
learned about HFC. And I wonder if you, if you would maybe talk a little bit more about that. And also, the name, Hilarity for Charity, really centers humor, and levity, right? In dementia care and support. And so, how at HSC, how do you, balance the importance of or the power of humor, right, with um, acknowledging that maybe humor in some cases can be misperceived, or like, how do you strike that really important balance, because you do it so well.
Right. Oh, thank you. That's a great question. And levity is one of our values. So we really try to ingrain it through everything we do. And as most of you know, Seth is a comedian, and HFC started as an event. It started as fundraising and in throwing events because they wanted to raise money for research. What happened after that is Lauren said, okay, I want to impact people more immediately. Like, research is great. There's a lot of money going to research, but how can we help people who are struggling right now? And so the care grant, the respite care grant program came out of that. And being able to give people respite that are doing this day in and day out. Right? And then from that grew support groups. Lauren was really fortunate. Lauren's support group facilitator is still with us at HFC as a support group facilitator. But we've grown from a few support groups to the 45 out of that. And so throughout that like shift and change, we still really wanted to say, okay, how do we, as Casey mentioned, how do we keep that balance? Because sometimes there are situations where humor is not appropriate, right? There are absolutely situations where like there's no joke or no, nothing is going to bring that situation. However, there are also a lot of times where people are like, "Oh my goodness, that helps so much." Like being able to read something that like made me smile or made me laugh a little or giggle, like it felt really good for that release. So I know that I'm going to shout out our comms team, our communications team, because they run our social media. It's three of them, and they run our social media. And there's a lot of feedback that people are like, it's really relatable. That they do a good job of presenting information, but then presenting caregiver side and adding in the humor. And so I just think that it's a part of what we do and just aligned. And so we try to make sure that, like, for instance, I mentioned Terrifically Funny Tuesdays as one of our ongoing community lounges. That's with Laughter on Call. And like I said, Laughter on Call really focuses and emphasizing like the humor of and how to and also so the CEO of After On Call had a personal experience with the family member, their mom and Alzheimer's, and that's how it was created. That's how Laughter On Call came about. And so just understanding though, she said she wasn't able to make her mom laugh. She had to have someone else come in. And so what she did is works to now help be able to not only give caregivers a break, but also give tools for caregivers to be able to, when they're working with people, to be able to add in that humor or, work to make the laughs. And so I think that because we understand the seriousness and we understand that there are going to be times where we're going to cry, where we're going to be upset, and where folks are going to do all those various emotions. I think that that's why we're able to balance and people are receptive of the humor aspect is because, again, we include all of it and make sure to hold space for people at various stages. And we also are open to feedback. Like there have been some people or sometimes that maybe a post or something hasn't been as well received by somebody or someone has. And we certainly are open to and hear people in those moments too. And I think that also allows people to go, okay, I feel heard, I feel validated in that moment. So like I said, our people, our comms team who manage our social media, they take that approach and actually making sure that they're responding and replying and following up to people. I see a couple
Yeah.
questions came in the chat. Says, do you work with other nonprofits? We do work with other nonprofits. We do, and anywhere can apply. Yeah, you don't have to be in a certain space. So we've also shifted in that regard. We used to have one main provider that we worked with, and if they weren't in the area, then we would work with folks locally to identify an agency or provider for that. And we are no longer specifically working with one organization. Folks, there are various ways to connect. People have said, "Oh, I know someone. I've already worked with someone. Someone has been referred." So now we are much more flexible in um, who the agency and providers who are providing the in-home respite. Yes. Yep. If you have clients who have already, yes, Corey, if you have clients who have already used up your voucher, yep, they can apply with HFC. It won't impact, like if it's not going to impact anything. And our support groups in person or virtual? That's a great question. All of our support groups are virtual via Zoom, and most of them are weekly, but we do have a few that are bi-weekly and that are monthly. Also, people aren't obligated to attend every week. People, which I get because people are like, ooh, like there are going to be some weeks they're like, what if I have a conflict and things like that? Totally understand life happens. So not obligated to attend every week, but of course it's there. And that's why I think I was mentioning we have a couple of groups like the monthly grief group that's not, it doesn't go through the same matching process as the other groups. Folks confirm they want to attend and then they receive the link versus when you apply for the other, you sign up. I review the information based on preference and some different information. I match folks. They have a conversation with the facilitator prior to joining the group, right? So that's a little of a lengthier process. So we've created a couple groups that don't have that much of a detailed process that someone's maybe able to drop in, get some support, or just see what a group is like and what to expect.
Jason, I have another question.
Sure.
This time about the road trip. I think that that's a really fun
Yeah.
resource, and what a clever metaphor to to really emphasize the fact that care partnership is a journey, right? Living with dementia
Yes.
is a journey, right? And
Yep.
so I love it. It reminds me of our, dementia self-management guidebook. We have the guidebook, and you have the road trip planner. So together, I think putting these two resources together, we're going to have maybe we'll call it the Atlas. But I think there are so many resources, right, about out there. In addition to the organization of the road trip, which I think is new and fun, and like I said, I love, very accessible. What would you say is maybe one or a couple of pieces of guidance that you have worked with, family care partners to put into the road trip planner that you feel like are really new, maybe that you haven't seen represented elsewhere? Like,
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, so thank you for that. And the road trip has really like the it was to provide something that again kind of aligns with our brand and what we do, where it's not just, okay, here's another PDF or here's another like pamphlet or a whole lot of information that you have to scroll through. But like I said, where you can jump to certain parts. So I think, for instance, we have certain checklists that, yeah, I know people have, but I think one of the things that this stands out for me is the different sections and how we're continuing to add sections. So though it's not added yet, I'm talking about one that's coming, but the clinical trials section, I'm very excited for. And as we are developing the road trip, we are enlisting information from various scientists, MD, now caregivers, care partners, and various people in the field in certain sections. And so for the clinical trials aspect, I think it's a difficult conversation, a very difficult conversation that people don't necessarily like to talk about. And so being able to go to have this and go here and get information. What a lot of people have said makes this helpful is like, okay, I like there's something tangible that I have. I can search, I can go on there and I can look. And then because it's HFC, you can then go to the website. You can see all the offerings for caregivers. You can go to our social media, right? And engage in those things. And so I think that having the overlap and having those things align is very different for us. And then I also really think just the language that we use and the way we talk is really different and helpful. And the whole point is for it to be relatable, right? Uh, so I appreciate that question. I think it's really that. And as we go along, like, of course, the first section is a little more like basic information. And as you get into different sections, then the more specific and the more detailed the information becomes. But then, like I said, also, you don't have to feel overwhelmed in looking at everything. You can go, okay, I'm specifically looking for this, or I want to look at this section, and you can do that. And then, like I said, there are things that you can revisit. And within the road trip, there are various links to not only HFC, but also other vetted resources.
thanks, Jasmine. Looks like you also have a question in the chat from Aruna. Do you have a support group for people newly diagnosed with dementia?
We don't have a support group for people, and that's because we've been trying to figure out as our groups are virtual, and we have 13 facilitators currently. I meet with them on a quarterly basis, and we had this discussion in our last quarterly meeting, is that it'll be a little more difficult, the logistics of that, because we would then be defining what newly diagnosed is, and then when people trying to then identify when people need to transfer out, then transferring them to a new group. So, as a response to that, what we are going to be doing for 2026 is offering lounges for people at various stages of the journey. So, like newly diagnosed, people who have been managing for like 10 plus years, people who are maybe considering or having to think about moving someone out of home and different things like that. So that's a great question, though we don't have a support group dedicated specifically to that. We are going to be doing those lounges in 2026, and we are looking at how to support people more because that has come up. That has been some feedback is people at various stages and especially newly diagnosed that it's a very different journey and process versus people who are in it and have been doing this for years. So great question. The more people that have information about dementia and how it works and how to go about helping others with it should be one of the most important things to get out in the world. Since more and more older adults are getting diagnosed every day. Yep, absolutely. And that's really what we're working on with in our push for brain health education and identifying younger and younger, that it's not just, at a certain age that, we can all start taking steps now and then what that looks like. And then, of course, that's what HFC Universe is. It's a tool to help people if they are interested in the brain health leader training. The courses it's free. I should have said that, as are all of our programs. So any support groups, any of our partnerships, like we have a partnership with BetterHelp, right, for one-on-one 3 months of free therapy. So all of those things, any programs that people sign up for, all of those are free to attend.
Looks like another question. What's the youngest group you have done studies on dementia with so far? So maybe thinking about talking a little bit more about your engagement with youth.
So yeah, our engagement with youth it's about 14 is like the youngest for our WIMA program. It's inclusive of high school and college students, and they're, like I said, across the nation at this point. And we haven't done direct studies as much as we've just sent out like our surveys. And so that's where we take our information from. So I just want to clarify that like we're getting, direct report feedback or self-report feedback from folks, but it's been of various ages. So the youngest that we've had is 14. And we don't keep ages. I won't say, I don't know the oldest because we just do 60 plus and we stop. So I wouldn't be able to give a specific, maximum age. But yeah, our information. And so for youth, when HFC acquired the youth movement against Alzheimer's, they had been running as a voluntary like organization that was led by like high school and college students, and don't they were doing a phenomenal job. But of course, sustainability and growth, and so that's where HFC came in, and then now WIMA has become a part of HFC Universe with the curricula and the brain health training. And for aid for support groups, so we did try our hand at a family support group where the teens and the parents met at the same time, but with separate facilitators as a support group, and it just didn't get the traction. So right now, support groups they start at 18. However, there's a couple of referrals. Lorenzo's house and some other folks support teens if they need, but also what we've talked about is if there is a need, if we get a need and folks are saying that, then we would be happy to re-engage and start a group for folks that are younger than 18.
And building on what you were saying about your engagement with youth, that's the last question I wrote down that I really wanted to make sure to ask is, um, I noticed that I don't think Nevada has a chapter of the youth movement against Alzheimer's. I wonder if maybe you could share a little bit more about what is some of the work that's happening in different chapters. What does it look like to join up, and how can we help maybe change that, put a marker
Yeah.
on the map in Nevada.
I love that question. And I love that you mentioned that because I will tell Laiska. Laiska is our WIMA manager, and one of her goals and focuses has been to engage and get in every state. And so we will look at doing that. But WIMA is what's happening is there's a lot of different orgs doing various things. So they will do very small do-it-yourself fundraisers. We just had like for the Y and YMA, we do different competitions. And so the different chapters are, competing for various things. What we offer them or what they're doing is while they're connecting with us, they're being offered educational and training opportunities of not only information regarding Alzheimer's and dementia, but also awareness. And that's one of the big things that they said is how do we amplify awareness? How like what can we do to get out there and make people more aware? And then also, like I said, educating themselves. They are afforded the opportunity. We have all kinds of guest speakers, different volunteer opportunities. And so I will send you the WIMA link and Lisa's information if you are interested at learning more or like getting involved. But yeah, it's not a hard process to start a chapter. It's one person. They don't have to have a whole group. If one person says, I'm interested in starting a chapter here, then Leska will get them started with the process, and then they can work to recruit members and promo after that. But they do connect with our comms team, the different chapters for collaboration in different months, like the Brain Health Awareness Month. We did a collaboration with some different chapters along with our care squad, and yeah. So Lima is, like I said, it's really growing and it's not specific to youth caregivers. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I really want to clarify that if somebody's interested in neuroscience, if they're interested in the brain at all, if they're interested in gerontology, if they're interested in any of those topics or anything that's related, then they can absolutely join Lima and be a part of Lima.
Well, I see. I think it would be an amazing thing to maybe one day we'll have a chapter associated with each Dementia Friendly Nevada community group. Really bringing youth into the fold. I think is definitely has been an expressed interest of our membership in the past, and is one of the things that HFC is expert at. So I see a lot of potential there.
I love that. And yeah, risk reduction. I saw someone say that in the chat. Absolutely. As we move forward, I mean, it's super significant. And that's why we're trying to make sure we're emphasizing and keep promoting it.
So thank you again, Jazmin,
Thank
for
you.
being here. It is
Thank you for having me.
amazing to know that we have HFC as a resource that we can connect with,
Yes.
and I know that I bet you're going to be getting a lot of messages and inquiries from Nevada, because wow, it
That's
is
perfect.
you're doing
Please.
such amazing work.
Please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, I put the care email. That's an email inbox I monitor directly, so I'll see it, I'll respond, and then the road trip link is there as well as our link to caregivers with respite grant support group and programs. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thanks for your time today.
Fantastic. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And I'll be sending out an email here in the next week or so with information about our Distinguished Speaker Series in 2026, including how to register. So be on the lookout for that. Thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Happy holidays. Stay safe, and we'll see you in the new year.